Hello. The topic that has been given to me to speak today is diversity, equality and inclusion, equity and inclusion in higher education institute and overcoming barriers in higher education institutions in the South Asian region. I will go straight to my presentation. The South Asian region is a sub-region of Asia, and it houses more than a quarter of the world's population, making it one of the most populated regions of the world. And the 7 countries that are included in the South Asian region are Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Afghanistan. And you can see it over there in that map. So the outline of my talk would be the diversity in the regions and the dimensions that make up the diversity of that region, and and why it is a resource poor region by and large, and addressing diversity, inequities, and the need for inclusiveness in higher education and medical education in this region, and what kind of measures have been taken to ensure that some of these aspects that we're discussing today are protected and propagated. So the South Asian region has a very ancient heritage stemming from religion, culture, art forms, beliefs, norms, and different ethnicities and religions that make up that region. But also because of the high population in this region, there is income poverty in all parts of in all of these countries of the region. And this region as a population have old age and young age. Some countries are predominantly aging countries, whereas some countries are young nations, such as India. For example, Sri Lanka, from where I come from, is a aging nation. So because of this range of ages in this region, and also because of the large population, there is a considerable amount of special needs requiring population, disability, and other illnesses that affect the South Asian nation, region. Social identity is a big part of this region. Social identity in this region changes and is diverse, and it is multi-layered from country to country. And the social identity comes from more than even the economic status or the education status of a person. It comes from to which ethnicity you belong to, what religion do you follow, what philosophy in life is affecting you, and so on. There is a diverse sexual orientation and gender identity and expression phenomenon in this region. Most of the countries of this region historically have been extremely sympathetic, compassionate, and inclusive in their idea of gender identity. But with colonization, that changed, and it changed, and it continues to change. And also in the South Asian region, there is a large number of people living outside the South Asian region, but who are of South Asian origin. And even within the countries and between the countries of South Asia, there is a lot of external and internal migration that is happening from this region. So the diversity of this region comes from different aspects of human life. If you take this map, if you take a look at this map, you will see how the countries belonging to the South Asian region have been colonized at one time or the other. Red denoting Great Britain. Most of the countries in this region were colonies of the British Raj, and sometimes France, Netherlands, Portugal, even United States, Japan has dominated these countries at some point or the other in Asia. And if you take special focus on South Asia, you can see in this map how we were colonized. If you take the income disparities, you can see the vast disparities even between the countries, ranging from 12,667 US dollars per capita GDP from Maldives up to a very low per capita income GDP in Afghanistan of 352. So these sort of economic disparities make the funding of education and higher education institutions a challenge to almost all of the countries in the South Asian region. If you take the haves and the have-nots within countries and between countries in the South Asian region, by eyeballing itself, you can get a good idea that this is somewhat the same between countries, and the proportion of people within countries are also comparable when you take the haves and the have-nots, or the poorest or the richest, and the range in between. So these income disparities and the per capita GDP limitations make funding for education and making education inclusive, diverse, and equitable a challenge to the South Asian region. If you take the identity of this region, you can see the language families from which the language identity comes from Indo-Aryan language to Turkic or Tibeto-Burman or Dravidian or Austro-Asiatic languages. This region has a diverse origin of language heritage as well. If you take the religious identity, you can also see that Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, and Christianity dominate this region. But just because the country is colored in one color, that doesn't mean there isn't diversity within that country. For example, India has a vast diversity of religions, as you all know, within that country. If you take Sri Lanka, also this is the how the religious distribution of our population is distributed. And then going on to the literacy rate, you can see the vast differences in literacy rate within the region as well, from 98% to 96 in Maldives to 93% in Sri Lanka to Afghanistan of 38% literacy rate. All these things pose challenges to ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion in health education, health institution, health and higher education institutions in the region. If you take the infant mortality rate as well, you can see the differences of that aspect as well. Sri Lanka having the lowest infant mortality rate, whereas Afghanistan and Pakistan have very high infant mortality rates. So all these things, the survival of the people, the literacy of the people, the language and the culture, and the amount of money that a country can pledge for higher education institutions, all will have an effect on addressing the issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion in academic institutions. Coming to equity and inclusion, so some of the positive discrimination that has taken place, especially in India, to ensure access to education are quotas for scheduled castes, and in some areas of India, even women who are historically disadvantaged in certain geographical locations within India are given quotas for flexible entry into higher education institutions. There are reserved seats for certain scheduled castes. There are scholarships and financial assistance in most of the countries in this region at higher education institutions, most notably the Mahapala Scholarship Scheme that is in Sri Lanka. And then there is countries like Bhutan, which does not have a very developed university education system, are given access to overseas education institutions, especially in the SAARC region. So here is a news from Hindu, where the Supreme Court held that subcategorization within a class is a constitutional requirement to secure substantive equality in education institutions in India. So in Sri Lanka, the education is free for all universities. All island merit system is followed for arts streams, but a district basis entry to other more competitive courses such as medicine, engineering, and physical sciences and biosciences. So 40% from pure merit, 55% to 25 administrative districts, and 5% to 16 educationally disadvantaged districts of the country that are mentioned in this slide. They get special affirmative opportunities to enter education. So this is how different countries are making policies to to make sure that inclusivity inclusivity is enhanced and discrimination is discouraged. So when it comes to diversity, reserve seats, special needs accommodations, addressing gender issues of education, holistic education, using local languages to not discourage students from learning higher education courses in their native languages, because linguicism plays a big part and as a barrier to education. So in these previously colonized countries, there is a lot of prominence given to English language and a social status and a social agency that comes with it. So teaching in local languages also helps students to access education. So different cultural activities, cultural acceptance and practices within these universities, such as celebrating events, respecting religions, making way for religious observances, making spaces, and such activities also encourage inclusivity and respects diversity. So South Asian University in the SAARC countries is situated in Delhi. This gives access to citizens of the SAARC region to access education in an easier manner, and it takes advantage of the intellectual capital of the region. And the medical curricula are designed so that that each country's culture is respected and understood, and those aspects are included into the medical curricula. We will discuss more about it. So the impact of gender quota on women's education opportunities in Afghanistan, it's a much troubled country at the moment. However, even a small quota increase of proportion of women or making this affirmative action increase the small number of access to female education. They may be very small in numbers, as you can see in the slide, but the impact into the future would be great. And these sort of affirmative action, policy level action, has tried to address the issues of inclusivity, diversity, and equity in educational institutions. So the primary care educators who work with local communities, they make sure they should work towards developing curricula, especially in medicine, that prioritize the needs of that country. So in the Colombo University, we have included home visits and community attachments. In other medical faculties, they call it clerkship program. And I would also like to introduce to you the Humanities program, which is a special program in medical humanities that is a mandatory 2-hour program happening every second month for fourth-year students. It is structured to take students from the unfamiliar aspects of human condition into the familiar territories, where we choose a pertinent topic in society or health related, and we use art, cinema, music, poetry, narratives, and students also perform in this program to bring to light the issues about equity, discrimination, stereotyping, and so on in society. So it is catered to Sri Lankan society. We get academics to comment and we obtain the feedback as well. So 3 topics I would like to feature here is the one on LGBTQI community, other one on difficulty with English literacy and linguicism, and then about the apparel industry workers of Sri Lanka. So we shed light to these kind of aspects of human society, and we include it into our medical curriculum so that the students from their very junior days are sensitized and exposed to these aspects of human existence and social issues. So in summary, I try to present to you the kind of diversity that exists in the South Asian region and what makes it diverse, what makes it vibrant in terms of income, ethnicity, religion, health status, and educational access. And I discuss some of the policy level, government level, national level, and regional level policies and practices that have been adopted by the South Asian region to overcome the limitations of financial limitations but to include the ideas of equity, inclusion, and diversity into their health education, higher education institutions, to ensure that there's access, and when students do get access, to ensure that curricula is culturally competent and sensitive, and how they try to incorporate policies into perpetuating these enshrined values. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. I will stop my presentation because my time is up. Thank you very much once again.